welcome everyone. I know we have many people jumping on as it's just approaching noon. My name is Bob Fisher. I am the Director of Alumni Relations here at St. Mary's, and it's great to have all our alumni with us over this noon hour. I'd like to introduce our wonderful speaker, and many of you, most of you know of Bill. So Bill Johnson is the Program Director for the Master of Science in Project Management at St. Mary's. Previously, he worked as a project manager in the areas of education, government, and nonprofit. Notable projects he's worked on is the U.S. Rhodes Scholars selection process, capital campaign fundraising efforts, and various infrastructure projects. Bill received his bachelor's degree in economics, business, and political science from Macalester College, and his master's of science in project management from our St. Mary's. I am happy to introduce Bill Johnson.
Thank you, Bob. That was a very kind introduction. I appreciate it. Before we get started, let's do a little celebration first. August was kind of a big month here for the project management program, and I see a number of folks on the webinar today, including Chris shown there. Hi, Chris. Who participated in our reaffirmation of accreditation with PMI-GAC. We received final approval with a unanimous vote by the Board of Directors of PMI-GAC to reaffirm our accreditation for another 5 years through them. So let's have a little round of applause and celebration for that. It was a big milestone, and I want to thank everybody that was involved in that, the alumni, the students, as well as some of the faculty. It was a big effort. So thank you everyone for making that happen and continuing that tradition here at St. Mary's. We are only about one of about 50 universities in North America that has that accreditation, which kind of really differentiates us from other programs that exist out there. So with that, let's move on to the webinar. And today we're going to really take a look at, give you a high overview of the new 7th edition of the Pmbok that was also released in August. So it's only been out about a month now. And it is a significant change. And it really focuses on delivering value. Previous Pmboks, as you know, often talked about value, but it was really focused on delivering products and services that we were doing. But value comes in a number of different ways for an organization, from improved processes to various, non-tangible ways that can be of value to an organization. And so the Pmbok really turns its attention to developing and delivering that value to organizations, not just the static, what we had done in the past of deliverables in the form of products and services. So this Pmbok really focuses on that aspect and really delivers a solid guidelines on how we go about doing that as project managers. Bob kind of shared with you my bio earlier in the introduction, but I put this here for you as well. For those of you, for the alumni, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. As Bob indicated, I'm one of your fellow alumni as well, and for any students that are joining us, I also serve as your advisor. So please don't hesitate to contact me either via email or phone, or even stop by my office. I am back in my office now in Brother Lewis Hall at 2304 Park Avenue in Minneapolis. And I'm usually here every day. Please don't hesitate to stop by and say hello and see how things are going. So please do that. So today, what are we going to really kind of cover? Well, we're going to start out with a little bit of history of project management. Its evolution over the past few decades. Project management as a discipline is really, modern project management really isn't that old. It was really developed back in the started in the 1950s and 60s. We're then going to turn our attention to some of the various methodologies that have developed, and then we'll take a look at comparing the 6th edition to the 7th edition. And then we'll take a deep dive, not too deep, into the 7th edition, looking at the standard of project management, particularly systems of value delivery, as well as the 12 principles there. And then the new Pmbok guide, which really focuses on performance domains, as well as tailoring, and as well as models, methods, and artifacts. We'll then take a look at how those two sections of the new 7th edition interact and relate to each other. And then we'll take a quick look at what is known as PMI Standard Plus, which is a digital platform where a lot of information regarding various tools and techniques that we usually talk about are now stored. And they're not so much in the Pmbok anymore. We'll do a quick summary, and then we'll look at the impact that the 7th edition would have on the PMP exam, as well as the curriculum, and then end with any questions that you may have. So we have a full agenda on the docket, and so let's get started. As I indicated, project management really goes back to the pyramids as well as the Colosseum and all of those kind of things. But modern day project management really started in the 1950s and 60s. And it was really started in the defense industry and the aerospace industry. If you recall the movie Apollo 13, after the astronauts had been launched and the explosion had occurred, they worked very hard to figure. One of the things that was destroyed was the carbon monoxide filter. They needed to recreate that. And if you recall in that movie, they really took project management principles and tried to develop a new carbon monoxide filter for the Apollo 13 capsule, given the limited resources they had up there, the materials, the talents of the astronauts, what they were able to do, etc., and what was the energy level they had. So really, whenever I watched that movie, I looked at it and I went, oh, this is project management in action to a large degree. And that really kind of was that first starting point of project management and the codification of project management as a discipline. In 1969, for example, PMI started, and then the first Pmbok was introduced in 1996, and we are now at our 7th. Every 3 to 5 years, a new Pmbok is released, and if you ever want to see them, I have all 7 editions sitting on my shelf. So if you're intrigued on seeing the evolution of the Pmbok over the Pmbok guide over time, please stop by. But it really didn't stop there. In 2001, the Agile Manifesto was written, and Agile was introduced into as a methodology. And in addition, several other methodologies have been developing over time. And you can see in this next slide all of the various methodologies that have been developed over the years for project management, from Agile to Prince2 to Scrum to Kibana to traditional waterfall, critical path methodology. all of these various methodologies have been created over time. Don't mean to be rude, but I believe someone has not muted their mic. If you could all mute your mic, there's a little feedback coming in here. Sorry about that. So we have all of these various methodologies, and what PMI to a large degree developed and owned traditional our waterfall methodology from its inception back in the 1950s and 60s up until today. And then as project managers, we're starting to lead different types of projects, particularly IT projects. Additional different approaches were made from Scrum to Agile, etc. And so so up until the 6th edition of the Pmbok guide, it really focused on the traditional waterfall methodology. The 7th tries to encapsulate all of the various methodologies, providing us with some principles by which to view projects by and how to move forward and execute all of the various types of methodologies that exist out there. So they've really taken it a level higher, and I'm really quite excited about this because it really expands our knowledge base and what we are able to discuss within the program, etc. So PMI with the 7th edition is really tried to encapsulate all of these various methodologies and address them and bring them under one umbrella as to how they are doing that. And the 7th edition really does that. Is their first attempt at doing this, and it really looks at how you deliver value to your organization. Everything within the 7th edition really is about delivering that value to your organization and how you go about delivering that value. As I indicated in the first slide, much of the subtitle of this whole webinar is delivering value. So that is what the new 7th edition really focuses on. And if you looked at all of these various methodologies, there is kind of a continuum from the traditional waterfall all the way to the adaptive agile, with hybrid methodologies being in the middle. Waterfall, and each of these methodologies have their place and are fitting to various different types of projects. For example, waterfall works incredibly well in construction, building houses, things on that. Agile works incredibly well in developing software or web technology or web software. So you have these various methodologies, each methodology working well for certain types of projects and not so well for other ones. And so one of the things that the new 7th edition looks at is how, as a project manager, determining which of these methodologies is appropriate for the type of project you're doing. And again, it really focuses on delivering value, not just your normal deliverables, but all types of value to your organization, improve production, improve processes, all of those kind of things, which organizations also value as well. So the various methodologies fit within this continuum from waterfall to agile, hybrid being a combination of those two methodologies. For example, say you're building a new tablet with some software on it. The tablet itself might be created using traditional waterfall methodology, whereas the software on it would utilize agile. And so how we as project managers manage those type of projects is really what the new 7th edition looks at and tries to provide us with some guidance on how to go about doing that. So that's kind of the whole methodology. It really brings together all of the various types of methodologies, recognizing that they fall into one of several categories, and looks at which of these are most appropriate for the various type of projects. And so that is one of the things that the 7th edition really looks at as well, is how to determine which methodology is appropriate and how to best utilize it, and what are the tools and techniques and processes that one needs in order to do, say, Cabana, or do Scrum, or do traditional waterfall, or traditional project management. And so we've seen a transition between the old 6th edition, really the 1st through the 6th edition, of a process-based or kind of a subscriptive-based document that really tells us, well, these are the processes, these are the tools that you're going to be using, this is the outcomes that you should use, these are the inputs that you should be using. Now to a more principle-based, looking at what is the appropriate way, what is the appropriate approach to managing a project, and provides us with some guidelines as a project manager as to how to look at a project, evaluate that project, how to determine which approach or methodology would be appropriate, how to manage under that particular approach, as well, and all in the while of creating value for the organization. So we've gone from kind of a prescriptive, this is how you do it, to these are some guiding principles by which we need to look at and evaluate the environment in which the project exists. What are some of the various systems that exist within project management, within an organization that impact projects? What are the various approaches or methodologies that are available? How do we go about working with stakeholders in each of these various things? But there are some common principles that we need to adhere to within all of these various methodologies. The one thing that many of you who are agile experts may recognize, that many of the principles kind of come from the Agile Manifesto. So it really does bring that forward within the new Pmbok. It also, but at the same time, all of those principles can be used for all of the various methodologies as well. And so here's some overarching themes that exist. In the old 1st through 6th edition, it was really focused on process. As I said, in the 7th, we're really focusing on a value-based delivery. In the 6th, we looked at 10 knowledge areas. There was the communications management, there was scope management, there was schedule management, procurement management, all of the various knowledge areas that existed within traditional project management. And now we are moving to what are known as 8 performance domains. Now you'll see some similarities when we get to looking at those 8 performance domains that are very similar to what are now the 10th knowledge areas, are currently the knowledge areas that we utilize in traditional project management. Also, the emphasis on looking at the phases of a project, looking at the initiation, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing, to emphasizing project deliverable principles. So these, how to look at it is now how we are going to approach it. Instead of saying this is how we're going to do it, we're now going to say which is the most appropriate methodology or most appropriate approach to this. The old first through the sixth, to a large degree, followed the traditional methodology of Pmbok, the waterfall. Now, as I indicated, they are encapsulating all of the various methodologies, from Agile to traditional, Cabana, Prince 2, you have it. The other difference is that in the sixth edition, it really was, project management knowledge was really part of the toolkit in the toolkit of the project manager. Team members didn't necessarily understand all of the processes and all of the knowledge areas that are involved in project management, but that is evolving, where now the project manager or the product owner or scrum master now really becomes more of a mentor of their project team, providing them with understanding of what processes they are going through and how they go about doing them. So once again you become kind of a servant leader, which is very similar to the Agile Manifesto, is part of the Agile Manifesto. So you can kind of see there is this move from traditional into a more expansive and inclusive environment that doesn't negate waterfall or traditional. That has its place. Certain type of projects exist. To now we need to look at all of these various variables. What is the appropriate approach? How are we going to do it? What are the principles that are going to guide us as we make these decisions? What are the various domains that we're going to really focus on during this process? And how are we going to deliver value? So that is really probably the biggest transition from the sixth to the seventh. So you can see this is a significant change from what was traditional. As I view it, we are moving a step above. We are taking the whole profession to a whole new level, and providing everyone, project managers, with a much larger tool belt to work with. So let's take a quick look at pretty much the table of contents for the sixth and the seventh edition. So in the sixth edition, we had the traditional knowledge areas, from integration to scope, schedule, cost, quality, etc. And under the standards for project management, we had initiation, planning, executing, monitoring, and closing. Now, in the new Pmbok, under the standards, we have these principles, and we're going to take a look at each one of these individually here in a second. But their stewardship, team, stakeholder, value-oriented, all of these various principles. Now, these principles provide us with guidance as to how we are going to do the project work. What are our objectives in order when we do the project work, which is really down here in the guide to the project management book body of knowledge, including teams, stakeholders, life cycle. What is the life cycle? What is the process by which we go through, to planning, to delivering performance, etc. Again, we're going to go through each one of these individually. The other thing that the seventh edition does, they did it to a certain degree in the sixth, but they fully expanded the tailoring concept. And we'll take a look at that as well. How to adjust each of the methodologies specifically to your project and how that can impact the overall effectiveness of a certain methodology. So tailoring is more fully developed, as well as models, methods, and artifacts. That's kind of under the models, methods, and artifacts is kind of where the processes, as well as the tools and techniques and documentation fall underneath, that we are all very much aware of. Down here, however, is what is known as the Standard Plus digital platform. And that is because project management is such a dynamic field where we've been changing rapidly, adding new methodologies continuously, all the time. I remember a few years back, Kaizen events were huge within the project management world. I don't know if I went out and looked. I don't know if Kaizen even exists, has been done much recently. But a few years back, Kaizen was a big deal. But that all of those, the various approaches, what are the processes that you have to go through? What are the various tools that you have to, tools and techniques for each of these methodologies will end up being down here in the Standard Plus digital platform. So you can see there's been a lot of changes with this new 7th edition. I'm kind of excited about it. It makes a lot more sense. It raises us to a new level of thinking, of critical thinking, and how we approach projects. And so that I'm very much excited about. It will also hopefully provide organizations with a much more value and develop much greater project success in the long run, because we have now really looked deeply into what was the project objective, what was the organization's intentions, what were the organization's mission to achieve, what was its goals. So it really allows the project manager a lot more flexibility, a lot more capabilities than previously existed within their toolkit. So that's kind of exciting for all of us. So let's take a look now at each of the two sections of the Pmbok. As you all know, the Pmbok is usually divided into the standards for project management, as well as the guide to the project management body of knowledge. And the 7th edition is once again divided into those two sections. So let's take a look at the standards for project management. And this section consists of 3 things: the introduction, which I won't spend a lot of time on. We'll look at the systems for value delivery. This really focuses on within an organization, what are the systems that we as project managers need to leverage in order to ensure that value is being delivered. And then we're going to look at the project management principles. The system of value delivery really is those things that exist within an organization and the environment in which a project exists that allows value to be delivered. How are we creating value within an organization? How is that information being flowed? What is the organizational governing system? What are the various functions associated with projects, such as oversight, objectives, facilitating? All of these various functions that are associated with project. All of these things really develop are systems that each organization will have that really can be leveraged to deliver value when we are creating projects. So this is very similar to the old OPAs and EEFs. We've all heard about those. Remember those OPAs and EEFs? These are that, along with the strategic plan of the organization. How it aligns with the strategic objective. So this section looks at the organization and how to leverage all of those various things to ensure that you are delivering value to the organization. How do you leverage the governance system within it? Who makes the decisions? Who is the individual that you need to ensure you satisfy? How does the project environment impact the overall project that you are doing, from internal as well as external? Again, these are like EEFs, external. Of course, my mind went blank right there. External external environmental factors. Thank you. And then also product management considerations. So all of these various things really look at the organization and tries to determine what is of value to the organization and how do we best leverage each of these various components within an organization to ensure that we as project managers deliver value. So again, this is like the old OPAs and EEFs, and it's also very similar to the strategic objectives, identifying the strategic objectives and how that align and how the project aligns with that. However, this is a much more comprehensive look at that, and it provides us with instructions on how to leverage that further. But the real center of the standard for projects is the 12 principles. Now, to a large degree, as I indicated, a lot of these will seem very familiar because they're kind of come from the Agile Manifesto to a certain degree. And these 12 principles provide us with direction on how we are to act or behave when doing the various performance domains. What is our objective? How do we go about doing our work in the various performance domains? And so these 12 principles have been identified, including stewardship, which is being diligent and respectful and a caring steward of resources as well as talent for your organization. So that is really the first principle, being a good steward. The second one is teamwork, or creating a collaborative team environment. That is the second principle. So creating that, and once again, you hear in what, and these are sentences that come directly from the new Pmbok. These are how we as project managers need to behave, or how we're going to conduct our actions. So to a certain degree, they are kind of like the code of ethics within project management. Within the new Pmbok, it provides that code of conduct that we how we are going to be doing our work. Stakeholders, effectively engaging stakeholders. Value, we're always focused on creating value, be it the deliverable itself or improving our relationships within an organization. All of that is of value to an organization. In each project, or improving your processes, all of that is of value to our organizations, to our businesses, to our enterprises. And therefore, we as project managers not just only focus on delivering that final deliverable, but now we're looking at all of the various interactions that we do, all of the various processes that we do, as well as those final deliverables. Are we providing value to the organization? System thinking is really recognizing and evaluating and responding to various systems. Again, this really addresses looking at which type of methodology is most appropriate to the type of project you are going to be managing or a part of. So it also looks at systems in terms of the organization, but it really focuses on which of the systems would be appropriate. Leadership, demonstrating leadership behavior, going back to the emotional intelligence, all of those kind of things. So that's similar to the leadership component. And then we have tailoring. We've always, as I indicated in the 6th edition, tailoring was really talked about, but they really expanded here. Value and tailoring really comes to life in the 7th edition. And looking at context for tailoring, which of the various tools that should we use when we're running a certain type of project? How are we going? Will that most effectively and deliver value to the organization? How are we going to do that? Quality, bringing quality into all of our processes as well as our deliverables. Navigating complexity is the next one. Understanding that all organizations are complex, all projects are complex. Some are more complex and some are less, but understanding how that complexity and impact how you manage your project or are part of a project development team. Then the third, or the next principle is risk, optimizing our risk response. Again, this is very, very similar to risk management, but it's how you approach risk. And we want to optimize our risk response. Embracing adaptability and being resilient. Being able to embrace changes as they come. And understanding the last two here, adaptability and resistance and change, really kind of go hand in hand together. And change really focuses on achieving a vision for the future state, embracing that, enabling that change to occur by embracing adaptability and resilience. So these 12 principles really are the foundation of the standard of projects. These are like our code of conduct as a project manager. These are the things that when we go in and manage a project, will focus on and how we will make decisions regarding what methodology we will use, how we're going to interact with our team, with our stakeholders, how we're going to select which of the tools that we're going to use, say for scope management or risk management. How are we going to integrate quality into the project, not only in its deliverables, but also in our processes. So now so this really is kind of the foundation of the standard for projects. These 12 principles, and they are, as I indicated, are kind of like the code of conduct for project managers or people involved in projects. Now, the Pmbok guide on this one also has 4 different sections. Main section, again, they have an introduction, But it also has a project, and the key here is the project performance domains. They also discuss tailoring. That it has a really enhances the tailoring component of how to manage projects as well. How are we going to do that? And then finally, models, methods, and artifacts, which really houses all of those various tools. How do we collect requirements for a project? How do you develop a critical path for your schedule? How do you develop a backlog for your product backlog for your project, for your agile project? All of these various methods and techniques can be found here, as well as in the Standard Plus area. But let's take a look at the project performance domains. And there are 8 of them instead of the 10 knowledge areas. And then they are stakeholders, team, lifecycle, planning, project work, deliverable, measurements, as well as uncertainty. So they have taken 10 knowledge areas and really collapsed them into these 8. There are some crossovers from the old 6th to the new 7th, but there are definitely some new ones here as well. And you'll notice that these are not how you're going, but these are the actual actions. So the principles indicate how you're going to make decisions regarding these performance domain areas. So like stakeholders, what are the tools and techniques you are going to use to engage stakeholders, to ensure that with the principle with regards to stakeholders, that they are engaged? What are the processes and the tools or the activities that we are going to do? Teams, what are the actions we are going to produce the project, produce the final deliverables for the project, or deliver? What are the actions we're going to do there? Do we need to train people? Do we need to monitor them? Do we need to provide them with mentorships? All of those various kind of things. So you have stakeholders, you have teams. Stakeholders, very similar to stakeholder management. Teams, resource management is about as close as you get, but it really focuses on human resources and not on material. Materials are in a different area of these domains. And then you have the life cycle, selecting which methodology or approach is appropriate for your project is really the life cycle. What is the appropriate approach? What is the appropriate cadence for delivering the customer, for delivering value to the customer? Then you have 3 sections: planning, project work, and delivery. Now, these are similar to the planning within the project lifecycle, planning, execution, and closure to a certain degree. They kind of go hand in hand with those. So planning is what are the functions associated with initiating a project and evaluating a process for creating those final deliverables that we are creating. What are those? Project work is activities and functions associated with the actual work that's being done. And then delivery really focuses on how are we going to deliver the scope? How are we going to create the scope? How are we going to meet the quality expectations of our customer or the organization? Now, measurement, on the other hand, is kind of like our earned value management to a certain degree, has a similar kind of feel to it, but it is the activities that are associated with assessing project performance. again, earned value management is kind of similar to that. So it really, but it not just exclusively to that, and not exclusively, but how are we measuring performance of our team members? How are we actually delivering value? How are we going about doing that? Are we reaching our quality standards? Are we reaching all of these various things? And how are we going to measure that to ensure that we deliver value to our customer? Again, that whole concept of delivering value once again comes through. And then uncertainty, activities associated with risk. This is very similar to risk and uncertainty. In all projects, we have a great deal of uncertainty. So it really looks at that risk and what are the various actions that we are going to take to ensure that risk or that uncertainty is limited as much as possibly can. So those are kind of the 8 project performance domains that exist within project management, within the new Pmbok. And this is really the centerpiece. The principles are the centerpiece of the standard. The performance domains are the centerpiece of the Pmbok guide, or the project management body of knowledge. Then they, as I indicated, they have a huge section on tailoring. And they really focus on how you're going to tailor the various methodologies or the various tools or various techniques or your approach to how you're going to manage a project based on the project value as well as the project complexity. This I think it looks very much like a probability impact matrix, probability and impact matrix, but this comes from PMI with regards to tailoring, and it looks at project value over project complexity, and it provides you with a kind of a guide as to if depending on where the project lands on this matrix, what type of methodology you would use and how much and to what detail you would use that. For low complexity and low value, very simple methodology. May use something. And then for very high value as well as very high complexity, looking at a more complex methodology. What are those tools that you're going to use? Are you going to use the Monte Carlo? Are you going to do earned value management as part of your measuring the effectiveness of what you're doing in the performance domain? Are you going to go, what are you going to utilize and how are you going to utilize it and to what extent? Again, the Pmbok guide in the 6th edition, tailoring was first talked about, but they really expanded here in the 7th edition and really focus on it and provide us with some really valuable information as well. And then there's the models, methods, and artifacts. And this is very similar to the Standard Plus. This is where all of the various documents that you would use, templates you would use, all of those kind of things, all of the various tools. What are the various tools you're going to use to collect requirements? What are the various tools are you going to use to assess a risk, whether the risk, a risk? What are the tools or techniques you're going to use to manage procurements? And so all of these various documents, et cetera, by methodology are part of the Pmbok guide here. Now, the ones that are in the new Pmbok are pretty standard and true, ones that have been around for a while. That is why they added the Standard Plus, because there are developments and changes. Again, project management is a dynamic field. So as I said, we haven't been around for long. Modern project management hasn't been around for long. Less than 100 years, which for a discipline is relatively short. So we are creating new ways of doing things all the time and integrating them into the processes. So this is where the tried and true methods really sit. Now let's take a kind of recap and look at the relationship, as I indicated, between project management principles and the project performance domains. And the principles are your guiding behavior on how you are going to conduct all of the various work that needs to be done in the performance domains. So the principles are the guiding behaviors to the work that you're going to be doing. How are you going to ensure that you are a good steward of resources during the planning process or during the planning performance domain? How are you going to handle your team during the project work performance domain? What are you going to do for stakeholders at the delivery end of it? How are you going to ensure value is being achieved while you're working with your team? How are you going to ensure the value? So the principles provide ideas as to how you are going to conduct yourself while you do the work in the performance domains. So as I indicated, we have all these methodologies. We are very much a dynamic and changing field. And so all of these new information is going to go down here, as I indicated, in the Standard Plus. And this is a digital platform that you can get access through PMI Minnesota, or PMI, through the PMI web page. And one of the things I'm going to announce here is that we have gotten approval to provide all of our students that are currently in the program with student membership with a PMI membership. So they will have access to this digital platform. This will be occurring within the next month or so. So they will have access not only to all of the new new publications, but they will also be able to have access to this. And that will be part of the program as well. So summary, it enables us as project managers and organizations to define value for the organization, evaluates the strategic objective and the environment through the systems of value deliverable, and determines the best approach to manage your projects. And it tailors that approach and provides guidance on how to manage your project and provide structure and processes. So it really elevates the field from a basic prescriptive, this is how you do it, to, okay, this is all of the various processes, all of the various tools, all the various techniques. How are you going to collect requirements? How do you do that in an agile? How do you do it in a traditional? Can you take some of the techniques that are in the traditional and use them in an agile environment? Which are you going to use? Why are you going to use them? And the guiding principle is always that number one thing of delivering value. So the Pmbok has moved to delivering value to an organization and not as much prescriptive. It provides us with guidance as to how to deliver that value through the various systems within an organization, through principles that provide us with guide our behavior, to what are we going to do? What are the various performance domains? How are we going to be doing that work? Now, the impact on the PMP, they launched a new PMP exam in January 2021. The PMP has changed a bit in the fact that it now not only doesn't count exclusively on the Pmbok, but has a number of references that are now they utilize to develop questions on, including the old 6th edition, the Agile Practice, Essential Scrum, Project Management Toolkit, as well as Pmbok Guide. There are, if you go to the PMP exam and look at all of the list of references that they are now using. So the new Pmbok should not necessarily have a huge impact on the PMP exam in the near future. Much of it will over time, but much of the information can be gleaned from the Agile as well as the old Pmbok. The new Pmbok will be coming into place. But if you go to this website or go to the PMI, you can get a better idea of what is expected there. The number of questions hasn't changed, the time commitment, etc. But they really have moved from strictly being based on the Pmbok to now being a much broader exam, looking at a number of different references within project management, within the industry. So that is I knew that would be one question that everybody was going to ask. And the next question is, how is it going to impact our curriculum? I've already been working with our faculty to get them copies of the new 7th edition. We are in the process of starting looking at integrating the new 7th edition into the curriculum, and we're hoping to deliver that within the over the next year. And I wanted to present to you the latest and greatest in project management videos that we have just created.
Advance your career and become a leader in any organization with a project management certificate or master's degree from St. Mary's University of Minnesota. You'll learn critical techniques to innovate in your field and develop new products and services in various work settings. Our program will teach you traditional waterfall, agile, and hybrid methodologies while developing your leadership, strategic management, and technical skills and talents needed to be a successful project manager.
Since the Project Management Certificate already contains the first 4 courses in the MSPM Master's Program, you'll be well on your way toward completing a full degree, preparing you for the PMP exam. Want to add an area of expertise to your master's degree in project management? There are several accelerators to choose from. St. Mary's is one of just 50 universities whose master's program is accredited by PMI GAC, the gold standard of accreditations for project management programs. To learn more about our project management certificate and master's program, visit us at smumn.edu/MSPM.
I'd like to thank the dean for
Advance your career and become a leader.
We don't need to do that for having that, for allowing us to create that. So this is the first time it has been shown in public. So I'm very excited about that. And thank you for your time. I hope you learned a little something today. And if you have any questions, please, I know we're coming up on the hour. I ran a little long here, but I'll stick around for an additional 5-10 minutes if you have questions and answer them as well. Any questions?
I have one. Phil, this is
Yes.
Angie Zillian. I have just my capstone class left. And so I saw that you said 2022, you're going to kind of incorporate the new 7th edition, but I'm just kind of curious for that last class. what that's going to look like for me.
You will still be using the 6th edition.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions?
Does PMI have a PDF or something that shows the differences between the two? If I was mentoring somebody and I wanted to say, hey, here's the difference between 6th edition
Advance
and
your
7th
career and
edition,
become
that's
a
pretty easy for them to review.
They haven't really done that yet. I've looked for one. There are a series of videos that they did prior to the release that I watched as they were coming out. And I can share that with you as well, Chris. Why don't you get in contact with me? This here is the best one screen of a comparison, but I'm sure that will be coming out. But given that it's less than a month now, or not even quite a month, something I'm like what you're asking for, I don't think has been created yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'd like to say thank you for coming and being a part of this webinar. According to Bob, this is one of the larger registrations for this type of event. So the project management program is alive and well at St. Mary's. And thank you for being there and supporting the program in every possible way you can. So thank you. And I'll hand it back to Bob. Bob, are you still with us? Are you?
I am still here. Yes. Thank you, Bill, for a great presentation. I know the alumni and the students of the project management program, and I did see one undergrad alum who I know was a project manager, Bo Reddick from the class of 77 on the program today. So thank you for leading and being a great example of what a master's program at St. Mary's is all about. So thank you for continuing the charge for project management and providing this program for these great alums and students. So with that, we are going to conclude the session today. We want to thank Bill and all the participants and all the great questions that we had after the presentation. So thank you again. And if you ever
I have one more thing to say. And that is, if you want to revisit this webinar in a week from tonight, on the 30th of September, I will be giving this, not the exact same presentation, but almost the exact same presentation at the PMI Minnesota virtual dinner meeting on the 30th, starting at 7 o'clock. So if you want to revisit this, you can do that at that time as well.
And we also recorded this, so it will be put on our alumni website as a recorded program. So, Bill, you will live in perpetuity. So
that may not be a good thing to do.
So thanks again. And if you ever need anything from the alumni office, we are here to support you. So I know I got a couple ideas of project management event ideas that I will be sharing with Bill from a couple of the alums that were on today. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.